There is a strange moment, dark, tiny, almost elegant in its cruelty, where a man realizes he no longer has to try with you. It happens the second you forgive him too fast. Not when you forgive him logically, or after reflection, or after he's earned it with some grand, humbling gesture. No, the fast forgiveness, the instant pardon, the emotional clearance sale where everything must go, your dignity, your standards, the last fragments of your self-respect all priced at zero. You think you're being mature, generous, emotionally evolved. He thinks you're cheap. Forgive too fast, and a man stops seeing you as a woman he could build with, and starts seeing you as a woman he can break without consequences. Men may pretend they cherish kindness, softness, compassion. They do, but only when it comes with boundaries so sharp they could sever an artery. The moment kindness appears unconditional, they sense weakness. And the moment compassion looks immediate, they smell desperation. A man does not trust a woman who forgives too fast. He studies her. He scans her history the way a seasoned thief scopes out a security system, looking for the gaps, the vulnerabilities, the blind spots he can exploit without triggering alarms. Fast forgiveness, to a man, signals two things. You are afraid to lose him, and you will tolerate almost anything to keep the illusion of harmony. Most women don't realize what they reveal when they accept an apology before the man has even fully formed the words. When they say, "It's okay," before he has finished disrespecting them. When they swallow their pain, like, "It's polite." The speed of your forgiveness tells him everything he needs to know about your internal scarcity. He doesn't hear your words. He hears your fear. He doesn't see your grace. He sees your need. Whores charge more than some women charge for their forgiveness. At least the former understand the value of exchange. Men aren't stupid. Immature, yes. Delusional, often. But stupid? Never where their power is concerned. The second they realize the emotional door swings open without resistance, they begin testing how far they can push it. Not because they're evil. Not because they want to hurt you, but because human nature gravitates toward the path of least consequence. Give him freedom without accountability, and he will sprint toward indulgence. And the cruel part? He'll blame you for letting him. There's a study from the journal Evolution in Human Behavior that reveals something men will never admit in public. Men lose attraction and long-term investment motivation when they perceive a partner as overly agreeable or forgiving, especially in the early stages. Why? Because it signals low selectivity, and low selectivity screams low value. A man does not treasure what he does not fear losing. You need to understand the predator logic at play inside the male mind. A man instinctively respects what threatens him, emotionally, psychologically, even spiritually. The women he never forgets are the ones who didn't crumble when he pushed, who didn't smile when he insulted them, who didn't rush to smooth things over when he destabilized the connection. These are the women who haunt him, because they show him that his charm, his excuses, his theatrics, none of it guarantees forgiveness. A woman who forgives slowly is a woman with an internal kingdom. A woman who forgives fast is a woman with emotional vacancies she hopes he will fill. Men feel the difference immediately. They categorize you instantly. The fast forgiver becomes the safe outlet, the one he can return to after disappointing himself everywhere else, the one who never demands more, the one who lets him stay soft, lazy, unchallenged. He won't commit to her, but he'll use her. She's the backup plan, the emotional pantry item he checks the expiration date on, but never consumes fully. But the slow forgiver? the one who doesn't fold instantly. She activates the ancient part of him that still fears losing food, territory, shelter. She ignites survival instinct. She becomes the scarce resource. He studies her like a puzzle, not to dominate her, but because the challenge sharpens him. A man feels alive when a woman's boundaries force him to elevate himself. He feels dead when forgiveness comes too cheaply. This is where most women set their own trap. They forgive instantly out of fear that withholding forgiveness will push him away. Ironically, the opposite is true. Fast forgiveness kills his desire faster than any argument ever could. It tells him there is no price for hurting you, and men do not value what costs them nothing. He may stay, but he won't stay as the man you want. He stays as the man he can afford to be with you, unrefined, undisciplined, unbothered. And you'll mistake his presence for loyalty, not realizing he's simply comfortable. Comfort is the death of male effort. When he no longer fears repercussions, he no longer invests. Men require friction to feel commitment. Not chaos, not drama. Friction. A sense that your forgiveness must be earned, not casually withdrawn from an emotional ATM. When he hurts you and you forgive too quickly, here's what he thinks. He thinks you won't leave. He thinks you can't do better. He thinks you're emotionally dependent. He thinks you're terrified of conflict. He thinks you overvalue him and undervalue yourself. He thinks you're easy to manipulate. He thinks your standards are negotiable. He thinks you're lying when you claim you have boundaries. He thinks your love is a discount store, open late, no ID required. But the most damning thought he has, he thinks you're predictable. Predictability is the great killer of male devotion. When he knows your reactions before you have them, he stops respecting you. When he knows he can hurt you and you'll forgive him instantly, he stops fearing consequences. When he stops fearing consequences, loyalty becomes optional and forgiveness becomes meaningless. The worst part? He'll resent you for it. That's the twisted paradox. He exploits your fast forgiveness, but he also secretly despises you for offering it. In his mind, if you truly had value, you wouldn't accept his excuses at lightning speed. You would slow him down, confront him, make him sit in silence long enough to feel the weight of his own stupidity. But because you forgive instantly, he assumes you need him more than he needs you. And once that thought enters a man's mind, the power dynamic is dead. You will never get it back cleanly. The woman who forgives too fast becomes the emotional mother, the caretaker, the dispenser of soothing words for a man who doesn't deserve them. He starts coming to you not as a lover, not as a partner, but as the child of your expectations, constantly failing them and constantly receiving grace he didn't earn. He will resent you for enabling him. He will disrespect you for allowing it. And he will eventually leave you for the woman who demands more. A man who receives quick forgiveness doesn't celebrate. That's the sweet lie women tell themselves, that their speed makes them the bigger person, the emotionally evolved one, the mature adult who rises above petty conflict. But in the male mind, your speed signals something entirely different. You don't know how to negotiate value. Men negotiate everything: respect, access, intimacy, power, effort, even their own vulnerability. And negotiation requires leverage. Quick forgiveness is the forfeiture of leverage before the negotiation has even started. You are surrendering on the battlefield before he has even drawn his sword. He will take note of this. He will file it away in the quiet places of his mind, where he keeps his calculations, the little notebooks of human weakness he never admits to keeping. He won't say it aloud, but he'll think, "You fold easy." This thought is poisonous, not to him, but to the dynamic. Because once he realizes you fold easy, he will begin pushing you for sport. Not big things at first, tiny things. Texting later, calling less, letting plans fall apart without explanation. These are the test taps, the early reconnaissance missions. He's not trying to hurt you. He's mapping you. He wants to see if you detect disrespect, or if you soothe it instantly with understanding. He wants to see if you confront, or if you collapse. If you forgive the small tests quickly, he escalates. Men escalate not because they intend to be destructive, but because human beings repeat whatever behavior yields reward. When your forgiveness is readily available, he experiences no psychological cost for his own irresponsibility, and no cost always leads to excess. This is a universal principle, not sentimental theory. Look at the Stanford prison experiment, not the sanitized summaries, the real thing. The entire spiral began when participants realized they could escalate behavior without consequence. Consequence is the backbone of human restraint. Remove it, and you don't get kindness. You get corruption. Men are no different. When you forgive too fast, he's not impressed by your big heart. He's intoxicated by the discovery that his bad behavior has no impact. It's pure dopamine for the undisciplined male psyche. It's the luxury of recklessness without repercussions. And once a man feels that luxury, he does not walk away from it willingly. The great irony is that men will treat the woman who forgives slowly with more patience than the woman who forgives quickly, because the slow forgiver forces him to self-regulate. She forces him to face himself. She forces him to earn peace instead of inheriting it. The male ego, fragile, entitled, dramatic, pretends to detest accountability, but in truth, it craves the structure of a challenge. Only a woman with backbone creates that challenge. Only a woman with restraint forces his evolution. You think your quick forgiveness maintains the connection, but it actually erodes it from within. It breeds contempt, subtle at first, then corrosive. He begins seeing you as a woman whose emotions are not rooted in power, but in fear of abandonment. He may not articulate it to himself, but his actions will reveal the truth. He will grow increasingly careless with you. Carelessness is the highest form of disrespect a man can offer, because it means he no longer worries about the impact of his actions. And here is the brutal part. He doesn't want to feel that way about you. He doesn't want to see you as weak. Weakness bores him. Weakness reminds him of the parts of himself he tries to avoid. Weakness forces him into a role he despises, the unpunished offender. Men don't respect the women they can disappoint without consequence. They become indifferent to them. This is the psychological rot that quick forgiveness breeds. He begins to equate your tolerance with low standards. And once he believes your standards are low, he stops trying to impress you. A man cannot strive for a bar he believes sits on the floor. There is no achievement in stepping over a threshold that requires no elevation. That is why the woman who forgives slowly, who makes him sweat, who lets silence sit heavy between them, she becomes the mountain. Men climb mountains. They stroll past doormats. Some women argue that withholding forgiveness feels manipulative. They confuse boundaries with mind games. But a boundary is not manipulation. A boundary is simply the refusal to reward poor behavior. Manipulation would require deception. Boundaries require clarity. Men do not fear manipulation. They fear standards. A man will survive manipulation, but standards threaten him because they force him to confront the divide between who he is and who he must become to keep access to you. Most men spend their entire lives avoiding that confrontation. And the women who force it are the women who ascend in his internal hierarchy. The rare ones, the unforgettable ones, the ones he cannot replace even if he tries. This is why a man can cheat on a soft, endlessly forgiving woman and feel almost nothing, but lose sleep over a woman he merely disappointed once, who still hasn't forgiven him 6 months later. It's not that he loves the former less or the latter more. It's that the latter represents a standard he fears he may never rise to again. Loss is not measured by affection. It is measured by the cost of replacement. When you forgive too fast, you announce that replacing you is cheap. When you forgive slowly, you suggest replacing you is catastrophic. Men are economic creatures. They invest where they fear loss. They indulge where they sense loyalty without leverage. Fast forgiveness is loyalty without leverage. You might think you're showing maturity. You're showing dependency. And he senses it. Once a man senses dependency, he shifts the dynamic. He begins rationing effort. He begins distributing attention like a monarch tossing coins to a village, sparingly, ceremonially, often on his terms. Because he assumes you will be there regardless. Because you've demonstrated you are unwilling to impose consequences. He begins to assume every grievance will end with you apologizing for having feelings. He begins to assume every conflict ends with you retreating first. This is where the rot turns into decay. This is where he begins to test loyalty instead of demonstrating his own. This is where he begins to see what he can keep getting away with. And he will get away with precisely what you permit. At this point, let me interrupt this delightful downward spiral with something that actually benefits you. If you are tired of bleeding power in silence, if you are finally ready to stop negotiating from insecurity, I offer one-on-one coaching. I pinned it in the comments. Women who do these sessions walk away with an advantage most people never touch: leverage. They learn how to read men with cold clarity, how to stop rewarding mediocrity, and how to create dynamics where they are pursued instead of tolerated. My landing page is finished. It will be in the description and pinned comment. Read the free PDF there, watch the video, and subscribe to the newsletter unless you enjoy repeating the same romantic disasters with different zodiac signs. Also, pre-order the feminine game while you're there. It's a course masquerading as a psychological weapon. Now, let's return to the ruins. When a man notices you forgive too fast, he doesn't soften. He hardens. But not in the way you fantasize about. He hardens in arrogance, in entitlement, in negligence. He begins rationing apologies as if they are diamonds. He begins treating accountability as optional. He may even start crafting half-hearted apologies, the kind of verbal crumbs he knows you'll collect and treasure. And to him, this is entertainment. He becomes curious. How far can he stretch the intimacy before it snaps? How late can he reply? How disrespectfully can he phrase things? How long can he disappear before you panic? Men are cruel researchers. They explore emotional tolerance with the same fascination biologists have for studying microbial resistance. They want to see just how much contamination your boundaries can endure before the structure collapses. Because collapse is what fascinates them, not cooperation. Women don't like hearing this, but men enjoy the thrill of testing the psychological architecture of the women they date. They probe for weak points. They press emotional bruises. They watch how you react under pressure. This is not sadism. This is selection. They are assessing what type of woman you are: the challenge or the consolation prize, the storm or the shelter, the queen or the caretaker. Fast forgiveness categorizes you instantly. It puts you in the caretaker box. And once you're in that box, he will never see you as anything else. Caretakers get affection, exploitation, pseudo-intimacy. Queens get investment, respect, fear, desire, sharpened by pressure. He may sleep with both, but he only sacrifices for one. A man's mind is a marketplace of competing instincts, desire bidding against fear, ego wrestling scarcity, pride negotiating with insecurity. When he meets a woman who activates all of them at once, his internal economy plunges into chaos. And it's in that chaos that the truth about him reveals itself. Most women assume men fear commitment because of responsibility. That's not quite right. Men fear commitment because it eliminates plausible deniability. As long as he's undecided, as long as things are complicated, as long as he's figuring himself out, he has one priceless advantage. He never has to face the consequences of disappointing you. Ambiguity is the fortress where male mediocrity thrives. Vagueness protects him from accountability. As long as nothing is defined, failure cannot be measured. Commitment forces measurement. Measurement forces reflection. Reflection forces evolution. Evolution forces discomfort. This is the chain reaction he dreads. So when he decides whether to commit or keep his options open, he's not asking himself, do I love her? He's asking, will she expose my inadequacies faster than I can compensate for them? You think men fear losing freedom. They don't. Men throw away freedom the moment a woman destabilizes them properly. What they fear is losing control. Commitment in the wrong hands is emotional exposure. Emotional exposure is vulnerability. And vulnerability, in the male psyche, is synonymous with weakness. Not real weakness, perceived weakness. The tragedy is that most men would rather sabotage a connection than risk being seen too clearly. They prefer the predictable safety of juggling 2 or 3 mediocre options rather than facing one extraordinary woman who forces them to confront the version of themselves they've avoided for years. And for those who want the highest level of transformation, the kind that requires precision and direct guidance, my one-on-one coaching exists. You're not booking conversations, you're booking a shift. And if you're ready for that shift, pre-order The Feminine Game. It's not a course for fragile identities or women who want pretty quotes. It's for women who want power, clarity, and the ability to navigate men without losing themselves in the process. The pre-order is available on my landing page, which I'll be linking in the description and pinned comment. You'll find a free PDF and a free video there. Read them, watch them. This is what my weekly newsletter looks like. This is where I sometimes say things that YouTube doesn't let me say. I'll be sending 3 weekly, and make sure to check under promotions or spam folder for my emails. Welcome to the dark side of your mind, an armory disguised as advice. Everything here exists to give you clarity sharper than the games being played against you. The reading is where I dissect your situation with precision. What he meant, what he didn't, what you missed. About 1,000 words, plus 1 follow-up question to tighten the strategy. The case file is the full autopsy, a complete psychological breakdown in writing, plus a private audio message so you hear the parts most people avoid. 1 follow-up to lock it in. If you want speed, there's the whisper. 400 words. Direct. Unfiltered. No extra dialogue. If you prefer tone and voice, the weight of the message itself, the transmission gives you a private audio response. No follow-up. No hand-holding. And if your situation is messy enough for multiple angles, Buy 2 services, and the third is free. Strategy rewards commitment. If you want the truth delivered publicly, without exposing yourself, there's the public whisper. One question, one strategic answer, posted for others to learn from. Short, clean, no follow-up. You already know why you're here. You ask your question, and within 72 hours, you get clarity most people never develop. Emotional discipline, psychological leverage, the ability to stop repeating patterns that drain you. The dark side of your mind isn't here to soothe you. It's here to change how you move.